games and plays and school carnivals. They go to work willingly in the morning, but are glad to come home in the evening. If a man driving through the parish on his way to somewhere else took one of the exit ramps leading from the highway, stopping off for the weak coffee and clean restrooms that make fast food restaurants a traveler's oasis, he would see the worst of what our country offers with none of its best. Though he might catch a clean whiff of pine when the breeze blows in from the east, or of the salty Gulf when the wind moves south to north, he'd be as likely to breathe a nose full of the stink that only a paper mill can churn out. Nothing that entered his field of vision would strike him as reason to linger. He would, more than likely, finish the paper cup of whatever it was he sought refreshment in, seal himself back in his air-conditioned car, and be glad of the easy funnel back onto the highway. But if for any reason he found himself driving the smaller roads that link the parish towns without reference to the no-nonsense stretch of clean black asphalt, his eyes would light on more peculiar things. If he was attentive, he'd pick up everywhere remnants of life as it used to be lived, of life as it was lived there and not quite the same way as anywhere else. If he followed the winding two-lane road between Cypress, the town where I was reared, and Banville, the closest French town, he might identify a few stands of trees with the exact mix of cypress, oak, and pine that could be found before the logging companies bought, used, and then left this land. If he got out to relieve his traveler's bladder behind one of those trees, he might be startled by one of the spotted salamanders that have lived there since before people, and that live nowhere else in the world. If he had called to go on to Banville, or was driven there by some back-road curiosity he couldn't quite name, and found himself in the town with no excuse, he might notice that the finely made Catholic church, with its jewel-colored windows that seem to melt in the afternoon heat, still looks out of place. It sits as a clumsy testament to some long-removed old-world grandeur in a town where the wealthiest man is a hard-working lawyer, and people are, more or less, still poor. And if he entered Banville's oyster bar, not the new one up the highway, but the one just off the town square, where the oysters are the freshest, but the dirty concrete floors frighten away even those tourists seeking what they call the authentic, he would hear the flat local French still spoken with both emphasis and speed by the men who shuck the mollusks. Chain restaurants are as trusted in the town of Cypress as they are everywhere, but a traveler can still find places, if he heads just south of the bedroom communities, where biscuits are made from scratch every morning, using fresh buttermilk and cut with an old water glass. Places where the ham served spent weeks in a tilted, hand-built smoke shed and came from an animal that, for its allotted time, had a name. If he pressed farther south, against the Gulf breeze that is sometimes mild but now blows with the force of the coming hurricane, he would hear more of the French patois, but also a Spanish laced with its Canary Island origins, though cut off from those roots for more than 2 centuries. In one village, he would hear more Italian than any other language spoken. If one of the women there caught him admiring her lush vegetable garden, she might invite him in for a flute of carbonated wine made from her homegrown oranges, and he would understand that the invitation was an order, that he could not say no to her. Indeed, there are sundry reminders of what life was like before my father and men like him, and some unlike him, laid rail and felled trees and, through their labor and sometimes treachery, made the soft, sterile bed on which we rest our modern lives. For anyone who listens closely and looks with attention, there are suggestions everywhere of life as it was lived before men with the power of money changed it forever. And if a traveler were to come across an establishment more or less untouched by our national fads and fetishes, if he entered and waited patiently